Iowa.
From high school to international wrestling, on the mat and beyond, this is the Potentially Dangerous podcast with the guys from IA Wrestle.
If you're a fighter, you like a fight. If you're an American, you like a fight. If you're an Iowa Hawkeye, you know you're going to get a fight.
Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and all your podcast-friendly apps. And follow us on social media platforms at IA Wrestle. Time to strap it up and get to the show.
All right, we are back here on Potentially Dangerous, episode 120 coming at you. It's been since May since the guys from IA Wrestle and the girls from IA Wrestle have hit your ears with wrestling knowledge and behind the scenes and whatnot. But Tony, Ross, we're back together.
It's amazing. It's been a long summer, but I think just the Alex Williamson episode took a lot out of me.
Yeah, we got threatening letters, we got emails saying, don't ever let Alex back on the podcast. We're like, all right, we're just gonna let this cool off, and hopefully people will forget about it. So if you were listening to that show and you unsubscribe to this podcast, we would appreciate that you resubscribe. So we're going to have lots of stuff here. Talk about preseason, obviously. Lots of stuff going on in Ames, Iowa City, huge recruits, Northern Iowa as well. And then the high school landscape this year is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see, we have a few stars. Last year we had tons of star power, Ross. Those guys that graduated were the OGs of the IA Wrestle when we started the site.
Yeah, they were the big names. I remember when we first set up our Night of Conflict event, and it was like, we need to get Alex Thompson, Brody Teskey in our event because they were just, the de facto stars, even though they were only going into their sophomore year. So that class will always have a special place in our heart here at IA Wrestle, I think, just because of how big they were for helping us grow, in the early going.
So let's get right to it. Iowa State has had you could look at it as a rough start, a rough August or a good August, depending on who, I guess, is spinning the news, I guess. So it's been a rough August, I guess, I think, for Iowa State standpoint, just because of the uncertainty. We've had some decommits that have been out there, but the biggest thing really, Mike Zadick obviously leaving. We had the coaches on Takedown Radio this past weekend at the Iowa State Fair, and he wanted me to hit me with the hard questions. Well, then he didn't really answer any of them. Did you have a chance to listen to it yet?
Yeah, I did, and it's kind of funny that hit me with the if he did say that, and you're like, what happened, and then it was like, well, I can't really discuss, why we let him go, but the only thing he did do was say that it wasn't because of a fist fight.
Yeah, that did get cleared up. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I said, when he said that to me, I was like, perfect. We're gonna get the Kevin Dresser uncut version, which is always great. It's been great radio in the past, but I get, this could be a legal issue that we have no clue really what exactly happened, but they had to fire him, and I'm really just kind of curious on what has to be paid out for contracts. Was he on a yearly contract? So was his contract up, and then they were in the renegotiation? I know Kevin Dresser got a multi-year deal, but did the rest of the staff? Do you know, Ross?
It's not uncommon for assistants to get multi-year deals, kind of like, we just put out earlier this summer that Morningstar's got a 3-year deal. So, depending on what reason a coach would be fired, that's probably what's going to go into it. And I think Zadick even put out in his press release, right, that he was asked to resign or if he wanted to be fired, and he didn't want to resign because then he feels like he did something wrong. He'd rather be fired and stick to his guns, right? Isn't that kind of what he said?
Yeah, too. And then if you resign, then there's no severance package or paying out a contract if you decide, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. So I get why they probably asked him to do that. But there's probably money left on the table. Zadick's a great business person. He's got lots of He's got lots of real estate out there, and I think he's going to be pretty savvy when it comes to that. He might people not think that because he loves to live in the woods and off the grid and has a beard and lives a simple life, but I definitely a smart businessman, and it'd be interesting to see kind of what comes of this if we ever hear, which is crazy. Like in football, like if a coach gets fired, like right away we know, okay, this coach is due $1.1 million or what, maybe that's just because there's not as many dollar figures in wrestling, but we know exactly what that coach is going to get paid for basically getting fired or leaving the program. I mean, we got coaches that resign and go to another program and they get paid out, which is, I think, crazy. But
I mean, Zadick's getting what he was getting paid was, better than a lot of head coaching gigs. I mean, he's one of the top paid assistants in the country. So, I mean, I get what you're saying. We never really hear what happens in these situations. Since it's probably more niche, there's not as many people digging into something like that. But considering how much he got paid, if Iowa State is still on the hook, I know overall for the athletic budget, it's, just, a dime to them. But, for the wrestling budget, it's probably a large portion. So you would think it'd be kind of significant in the scope of wrestling, but not maybe the athletic budget.
100%. Just in wrestling wise, these budgets are so, nitty and they're tight. So I would think if you're having to pay out $50,000, $75,000, $100,000, that's not an easy check to write for somebody that now has horrible timing, kids in on campus. Yeah, so I mean they've tried to spin it obviously, which I totally get. I think it sounds like they're going to be bumping up Metcalf, bumping up St. John to full-time position, so Metcalf can recruit now. So, and what are your overall thoughts on how this affects the program? Is this kind of like get swept under the rug? Do kids like, it's just part of it? If I know his dresser, he's going to do a really good job of, I guess, talking to recruits about what actually happened, and it doesn't affect anything going forward.
Well, I'm kind of curious how much this has impacted the program overall over the last 13 months. I mean, obviously Dresser evaluated something, and he said in your takedown interview that there's a lot of chemistry, that the vibe was off, the plan wasn't matching up, and we talked about Iowa State has lost 13 guys have transferred out of this program, and you kind of wonder how many of them, maybe they just kind of clashed with Zadick, because we know Zadick was running the practices. So you kind of wonder how many people did Zadick weed out. And if, now going forward, I'm assuming St. John or Metcalf's going to be running practices, because Dresser, that's not really where he knows his strengths at. So, if Metcalf had been running practices, would the same guys have been weeded out? So how much, I kind of wonder, does it already affect what's happened up to now? And then we got to this point where a lot of guys got weeded out, but they probably connected with Zadick. So now that Zadick's gone, do you think a lot of people are going to be like, he was kind of my guy. He mentored me. A guy like Jared Dagan, who I know he's really close with St. John, but, Zadick was a big reason also getting him out to Virginia Tech and then transferring to Iowa State. I know Dagan can't really leave unless he graduates, since he's already done his transfer. And I'm sure he's happy in the program, but just kind of those little things that will it affect them, on a little bit of a performance level, since they just lost somebody that was hugely important to them.
Immediately when I heard the news, I was thinking, well, here comes some more decommitments, because there's got to be somebody, like you said, have those connections with Mike Zadick. I think he's one of those guys that you're either going to trust in the process or you're not. You're going to absolutely hate him, because he's a pretty stern guy. I remember going into media day last year and just kind of hearing how he talks a little bit, and it's like, put up or shut up and get out the way, if not. And I think some of that happened, was the reason why Kanan Storr left. From what I've been told, Zadick was a part of that. maybe if they would have got rid of him beforehand, maybe it could be a reason for Storr to stay. You never know. All woulda, coulda, shouldas at this point. You wish it would have happened 6 months ago, right before school starts. But another kind of a negative also to at Iowa State here is I'm pretty bummed. We talked to him on Saturday about this. I don't know if this just recently happened or they just weren't willing to talk about it yet, but Austin Gomez can't go to the Junior Worlds. Got, slight knee injury. I mean, they didn't mention anything in regards to that. So that's bummed. That bummed me out a little bit.
I mean, if you're an Iowa State fan, you're bummed that there's a guy that's got an huge opportunity for himself to get some high level matches and grow as an athlete. But I think if you're a fan of Team USA, I mean, even if you're an Iowa Hawkeye fan, as much as freestyle's been growing over the last year, 2 years, Gomez was a legit medal threat for USA. And I think they just announced it's going to be Josh Saunders, who wasn't the runner-up. Obviously, the runner-up was Vitaly Raju of Cornell. I think he's on the U23 team, so that's why he didn't probably take the junior spot. But we're going pretty deep into our junior team to pull Saunders onto the team. So, I mean, that hurts USA's medal chances. It's a bummer for Iowa State fans, but, I mean, just overall, it's kind of a raw deal.
And, last year he was dealing with a concussion, so he just kind of been bummed up, dinged up here a lot. So I'm hoping that, obviously, their end game is have a successful college season, right? The coaches are telling them, what to do, and if he's not 100%, then there's no point in going, clear across seas to get hurt anymore or just to lose, if you can't even go. So I'm glad that they're giving the opportunity to somebody else that could possibly, maybe bring home a medal for the United States. We're so deep at the junior level, in the cadet level, hell, the senior level. I mean, USA Wrestling is in a very good spot right now, I think, for freestyle. Greco's another thing, another podcast. But so lots of things going on in Ames. Obviously, Gomez, now Earl Hall's gone too, Ross. I mean, I saw that tweet a couple days ago. Asked him on Takedown Radio, and he's like, end of discussion. I just didn't retain him. So something tells me too that there was kind of a little rift there with Earl Hall, because he just did not want to talk about it.
Right. Yeah. Just really didn't want to go into detail. I mean, but credit to Dresser who answered the question. I know we reached out to Earl Hall, and we asked him when he put that tweet out that he was looking for new places to train. And, Earl said he was just kind of opening up his options, but, Dresser comes out and was blunt and said, no, he's gone. And that kind of makes sense. Iowa State probably, they could use a lightweight guy in the room, but, Earl Hall wasn't one of a Kevin Dresser guy. So it makes sense. Like, this is a senior level athlete from the previous administration. Maybe you want to get somebody more on board with your thoughts. I mean, it makes sense to get rid of him, I think, but.
Well, they got Durbin in there too, and no offense to him too, but why are they keeping Durbin?
Right. I mean, I don't want to criticize them because I don't know how the recruiting has been going for them, but their senior level salaries, I don't know what they're paying stipends, but they're getting a lot of money into that RTC, and they're paying Gatson, who, is legit on our senior circuit. But the other two guys, they're not even really contending for a national team. They're not even a threat to make the top three. So what are you doing with that money? Can you find a better athlete? If you want to be an elite program, you need better senior level athletes.
They're raising money. I mean, they've the number. They must be trying to have a big splash, right? I mean, they probably just get a little nest egg, start getting some interest on that bad boy, and then they're going to go after some people. I mean, I can't imagine that car was cheap, but you also get a son too. So I mean, you're going to be willing to pay. You're going to be willing to pay dad to come if we get the kid too. I'm not saying that happened, but I'm sure it helped. So, the situation with Earl Hall, I think there's no no one's really upset that he's leaving or worried of why he's leaving or if there was issues with Zadick or the CRTC or not. So I mean, they're just completely changing things the way that they run. So I imagine that they're going to be making a lot of moves here after the World Championships maybe, and go into 2020 trying to get some big names. I mean, if they got a big nest egg of money, I mean, there's no reason why they couldn't go after big names like David Taylor. I don't know what he's getting paid at Nittany Lion. I'm sure it's a ton. He's got a club out there, so I don't think David Taylor would ever come back to wrestle for the Cyclone Regional Trainer Center. But they want somebody that can coach, compete. So I think it's going to be. Who do you think? Who are you hearing? I mean, could they go after John Reeder? I don't see how they break him up from Bono. Varner? I mean, Varner would be an option.
Well, John Reeder would be tough, especially since, on your radio show, Dresser said they're looking to, obviously they have to post Zadick's job, but they're looking to slide Metcalf and St. John up and hire in the volunteer role. So I know the CRTC is going to probably, fund that volunteer salary, and it could be a really good salary. But, for a guy like John Reeder, who is a head coach in waiting, he could have led the South Dakota State program. It was offered to him. That would be a tough pull unless you're going to slide Metcalf back to volunteer. And, Jake Varner's kind of in that same situation where he's on the path to become a head coach. So you can't really put him back in the volunteer role. And they want somebody competing. So they just got rid of Earl Hall. They lost Zadick, who's kind of, one of those lighter weight guys. So you would think they would target somebody smaller that can work, since they have St. John to work with the middleweights. They have Gatson and Durbin to work with the upperweights. They kind of need to bring in another little guy.
People are saying that this just seems kind of set up for Kyvan Gatson to take this position this year, but I'm pretty sure we had him on the Takedown Radio, and he said he didn't want to be at the college level. I think he wanted to coach freestyle, like a CRTC. He didn't want to be at the college level, so I don't think that it'd be a position that he would take. But if you're going to pay him, I mean, everybody's willing to do something for a little bit of money typically. So I think it would be an easy fit for them. I just kind of try to think of other people they could go after. We know that they did go after Tony Ramos, right?
Right. So, what do you know about? Do you know anything on Tony Ramos? About?
All I know is when Ramos knew prior to a lot of people knowing. So I think when Zadick did get fired, I think Ramos was a name that got brought up right away. Obviously, connection with Metcalf and St. John, and they know Tony's thoughts on the University of Iowa right now. So I think he'd be a good fit that would come in if they're trying to out recruit Iowa. Ramos would be the guy. But that's all I know. I haven't talked to Tony personally, but I think he's comfortable where he's at right now.
So here's what I find interesting is that Neil Iresman from North Carolina left to take the Little Rock job. That's, the new program that's starting up. And that created a new position or a new opening for a paid slot on the North Carolina staff. And it was kind of assumed, I think, that Ramos would take that job and Tar Heels would go look to find and replace the volunteer role. Because, Tony's starting to get toward the end of his competition career. I know he's going through 2020, but, after 2020, he's going to be on the older side. He's going to be closer to 30 than he is, with Spencer Lee and Dayton Fix being closer to 20. So, it makes sense for a guy like Ramos to slide up into a paid role. But that news that Iresman left North Carolina, that was a long time ago. And that position's been posted for North Carolina for a long time. And you would think if Ramos was going to take it, it's been posted long enough that they could have already announced that promotion. So I do find it really interesting that Ramos hasn't been, announced as the assistant coach at North Carolina. And this position, and it opens up at Iowa State. It's just kind of a weird coincidence that hasn't happened for Tony. Maybe he is really starting to look at this Iowa State job.
Yeah, I mean, again, Tony's has always been one of the great business guys out there with sponsors and branding himself. So if there's an opportunity to move up in, I think, the coaching ranks, because this is a guy that I know wants a head coaching position at some point. So if he thinks Iowa State is maybe a better fit for him and his family, or anywhere really, I could see him moving. I never thought I'd see him moving to North Carolina, right? I just didn't think that would be a spot that Tony Ramos would go. But a program that not really established with high level wrestlers. They've turned around the program. Cole Muscat has done a great job down there, getting some big name recruits in there. But Iowa State does have the name, the history. They've got a long ways to go still. I think this team's going to be great, but maybe Tony Ramos is thinking long term. And I think you bring up a great point. Like, why hasn't that been announced yet? You'd think he'd be and if he didn't get the job, what is he doing, right? I mean, unless he wants to stay in his role and still compete, and he feels like if he gets a promotion that he's can't compete at the level he can right now. That's tough to say.
Yeah, and especially since Dresser said they're looking for somebody that's still competing. And like I kind of just mentioned, Ramos is going through 2020. So even though Ramos isn't necessarily, if you're trying to think of a guy that is a surefire candidate to be on the rise to make the world team, he's definitely got the experience and he's still competing, but he's got great coaching credentials. And moving from volunteer at North Carolina to Iowa State is an upgrade if you're looking at program-wise. So, you don't really see it as a lateral or step down for Ramos. That's why I think you're right. It's a smart, savvy move for Ramos if he wanted to take the Iowa State job.
What about, if you got the money, what about Kyle Snyder? He's not on staff, right, at Ohio State? He's just an athlete.
But, then you're going to have he's going to be away from Tervel, who's obviously his big buddy there, and you got the number 1 and number 2 97 kilo guys in the same room. I feel like that's, as much as people like to say that competition, breeds better performance, I don't know if you want the number 1, number 2 guy in the same room.
Yeah.
That'd be tough.
I'm just trying to think of guys that they could go after that could be still competing, that would be a big name.
Right. I thought Joey Dance might have been a guy they'd go after. I think Joey just got a job at Davidson, though, full-time assistant maybe. But I thought he would have been, since he was a Virginia Tech guy. I think Dresser kicked the tires, but Dance ended up going to Northwestern for their RTC when Dresser took the Iowa State job. But I thought Dance might be a guy because he's competing. He's lightweight. But that's going to be – everything seems like a tough fit and pull at this time of the year, so it's kind of hard to make a prediction when everybody else is starting their jobs into the next season, right? So
yeah, and with the World Championships coming up too, no one's really going to want to probably jump ship. So I just don't see how they could get somebody at a high level in the CRTC or to fill that volunteer spot, here before the season, but. Like Dresser said, there's no real timetable on it. Like, it's just got to be the right fit. If it happens right now, great. If not, we're going to be okay this season. So keep your eye on that. Obviously, if we can get any news for you, we're going to bring it to you. But that's it at Iowa State. They've got a lot going on, man. Holy cow!
It was a busy month.
yeah. Let's talk about Iowa. They obviously have been hot recruiting right now. I think the Spencer Lee effect is in full effect out there, but they got a lot of stuff going on at the Hawkeye Wrestling Club right now. They put out a tweet expect some big news soon. Ross, is this? These guys talking about hey, we're gonna do a ski shoot on Kinnick Stadium or something, or are we talking bigger, an actual breaking news type story?
I think they're probably going to start adding to their roster. Because, I mean, I guess I don't know if Boris Novachkov is still in the room. For some reason, I was thinking he was gone.
Have you seen Have you seen Boris's like Instagram posts and Facebook posts?
Yeah,
dude, it's like a ninja. Like he legitimately like thinks he's a ninja.
Well, maybe he's gonna be American Ninja Warrior.
He should be. He's just goofy. I don't think he's at the Hawkeye Wrestling Club anymore.
So, I mean, I don't know what he was getting, if much from the Hawkeye Wrestling Club, but obviously I think he's gone. We know Chris Dardane's left to go to South Dakota State. Wait, god dang it. Was it Chris or was it Nick? One of the Dardanes left.
I think it was Chris. I'm going to go with Chris.
Okay, I could, yeah.
Look it up.
But so they lost one of the Dardanes to head coaching, or not head coaching, just a coaching, and it was Chris. So, they had a couple roster spots open up, so you would think they're adding someone.
I know that we had Forrest Molinari on Takedown Radio here a while back after Final X, and she said that she was going out to train with Allie at the Hawkeye Wrestling Club. Her Michaela Beck, I thought Haley Aguillo, but maybe she was just going out there to train. I can't remember. I have to go back and look at the podcast version of the radio show, but yeah, there was some girls that were coming out there, and Allie's trying to really get them on staff. So I think the announcement is going to be multiple girls jumping on board with the Hawkeye Wrestling Club, place to train, and I think Iowa leading the way there and announcing these RTC salaries. We don't know what the dollar figure will be, right? But I think they're setting themselves up for a great thing in the future if they do sign, a couple of these girls.
Yeah, it's obviously a positive direction for our sport, and Iowa had that what was that, all girls camp or whatever that Reagan was, so I mean, obviously that's the direction that Iowa's looking to go. They were one of the only programs that have 2 women on staff last year or on roster. So it's obviously the direction we're looking to go. We know that in order to keep it an Olympic sport, having a strong women's wrestling program, in the world is really important. So this is obviously a smart move by the Hawkeye Wrestling Club to keep adding women because it'll push other programs to do the same. You talked about Haley Aguillo, who joined the Tar Heel Wrestling Club, I want to say a couple months back, and I think they might have another woman too. It's Becca Leathers, maybe? Does that sound right? For some reason, I was thinking
yeah, I'm not sure if she's on it. That is a female wrestler, but I don't know if she's on the Tar Heel wrestling team or not. But either way, that just kind of seems like that's the trend, right?
Yep.
Like you said, in order to have strong, wrestling to be strong in the Olympics and keep it in, we still have to keep on building up those women, and they're being, pretty damn successful. They're going to be in a hunt for a team trophy. They have been. There's also 2, and I didn't know anything about this. I haven't heard of him being in the room, but JUCO champ Nodir Safarov. We are great I'm good at butchering name, but I'm pretty sure Safarov is the way you pronounce the last name. Nodir, maybe? Or,
that's what I think. I think you're saying that. That's how I would say it.
Boom. Nodir Safarov. So he puts out a tweet last night and he followed me. So, I mean, I don't know what's going on here. It just says Iowa is the best. And Hawkeye Wrestling Club Road to Tokyo 2020. And he's followed by like the who's who of who you would want to be followed by if you were in the Hawkeye Wrestling Room. You got Brands, you got Perry, Ross Bartachek, AZ Chief. I mean, these are guys that are well connected. Gristle. Just to name some names, obviously Corey Clark Shoulders in there too, following him. So, the who's who are following this guy. So there's got to be some kind of connection there too. Does he have any eligibility left?
So we talked. This was around the same time like Austin DeSanto was looking at transferring to Iowa. So this must have been right before the World Cup. he visited the room. I think he's used all of his JUCO eligibility, but he's like, I want to say like mid-20s. So as far as like the NCAA goes, they have different rules than obviously the NJCAA. Yep. So, I would think based on what we kind of know or understand about the NCAA, he probably doesn't have eligibility there, which is why he's saying he's Hawkeye Wrestling Club athlete in his bio. And I know we talked about him coming, and if you follow him on Instagram, because everybody loves the different social media accounts, if you see there, he's been wearing a Hawkeye Wrestling Club hat all summer. So, and I think he's been back home, wherever his home country is. So, maybe he's coming back, he's starting to gear up. I don't know. I honestly don't know what his status is, but it's very interesting that, he made that tweet last night, and I'm pretty sure his bio didn't say that before Hawkeye Wrestling Club. I think it did say Road to Tokyo, but, it's kind of looking like maybe he's going to be a part of that announcement.
Interesting. So keep your eye on that. Those are kind of the nuggets here. I'm thinking 2 girls and 1 guy are going to be announced at the Hawkeye Wrestling Club. I think those are going to be your names. So that's good news if you're a Hawkeye fan. Anytime you can get people in that room, with some creds, I think that's moving in the positive direction. Also sticking on Iowa, Junior Pan Ams. Wow, Cassioppi, she just was like blowing people up. He had a couple throws on the edge of the mat. The biggest question I think obviously Moody too. Don't want to forget him. Won the Junior Pan Ams as well, but I think the question mark that I got at the State Fair and people that are around the Iowa are asking about the Iowa program is if Stoll can't go. Obviously, shot his knee. He's got bad knees anyways. If he can't go, who's the guy? Is Cassioppi ready? Do you think? Obviously, Triple Crown winner. There hasn't been very many of those. Double Triple Crown. Do you think he is a heavyweight that can be an All-American?
This is going to be a real interesting debate because, like you said, a double Triple Crown. I think Adam Kuhn was the only guy to accomplish that feat. So Cassioppi's obviously in pretty rare company. He's been pretty dominant. Obviously, a lot of his accolades have come, and he hasn't run into Gable Stevenson who's headed to Minnesota. And isn't there another big heavyweight name? Maybe it's just Mason Paris, who Cassioppi handled out at Fargo, I think. So I feel like there's another big heavyweight name in this class, and I'm forgetting. But I think there's a couple heavyweights in this true freshman class that'll probably be All-American contenders. And I'm starting to buy the hype because Cassioppi has looked phenomenal. We love our boy Aaron Costello. But Cassioppi's kind of had the better of him in their high school matches. Costello's been in the room working with Stoll for a year, so maybe a little bit's changed there. Costello's really grew this last year if you look at the margin of victories he had with like Gannon Gremmel compared to what it was. So I think that'll be an interesting battle, but I'm kind of thinking Cassioppi might be the guy if Sam Stoll can't go. And, Tom Brands isn't afraid to not wrestle true freshmen anymore.
Yeah, I think when I look at heavyweights, and it's so hard after you watch like Kyle Snyder, Adam Kuhn, like just giant dudes that are cut heavyweights, and then guys like Costello and Cassioppi that they're just so hard to judge of, do they have man strength yet, is what I like to call it. Like, are they still high school weight wise? I mean, these are kids that have been able to walk through their state tournaments, not have to lift weights a whole lot, and you can't really tell, muscle mass on Cassioppi yet. So I think the way that heavyweights are going now is you just gotta be a Kyle Snyder. You gotta be quick, fast on your feet. And Cassioppi obviously is great on his feet with his Greco background. It's going to be hard to push him around. We thought that with Sam Stoll too, his Greco background, but he's kind of struggled to find some shots. But I think Cassioppi has more of those than Sam Stoll did coming in. I think Cassioppi is ready to go. I don't think that you can expect a national title, but this heavyweight class, Ross, is like wiped out. There's no returning national champs coming back. There's a few guys coming back, but I mean, I think it is wide open right now.
Right. I mean, Sam Stoll could, like, he was in the running to be a preseason number one because of, you know, he's like one of the highest returning credentialed guys. And a lot of, excuse me, he's been pretty solid for the most part, but injuries kind of slowed him down there, you know, for I guess two of those seasons, first two seasons. So, you kind of talked about how we thought he would be really good coming in because of his Greco background. And, you know, you lay that layer on Cassioppi, but Stoll never had the freestyle resume background that Cassioppi did. So I think you're right that we could see Cassio you know, he could be a more polished version of Sam Stoll. And Sam Stoll was pretty good as a true freshman. I mean, he wasn't great, but he was pretty close to being a finished product, and he was by the time his freshman year came. But I think Cassioppi's, you know, a little bit ahead of the development curve than Sam Stoll was coming in.
I think we're seeing that with all like this new crop of kids when they coming in on campus. You're a high level recruit. I mean, you are ready to step in, and we just see this trend of where coaches are, you know, redshirting sometimes can be a bad idea. You know, so get them on the mat right away. Obviously, Spencer Lee worked out pretty damn well for Tom Brands' decision to do that. But I'm just really kind of curious. It's weird that we haven't heard a whole lot from Sam Stoll, right? Like, what's going on? How's his rehab going?
Yeah, right.
And that was kind of the joke of last year. But literally, people would like to know probably how is his rehab going. I mean, he shot, you know, got a bolt through his knee. Are you heard anything about possible medical red shirt?
I would think he would qualify, right? I mean, he's missed
a lot of time.
He missed quite a bit of time as a sophomore. I mean, they're handing him out like candy now, right? Yeah. I mean, the Missouri Grant Leith, his last name's Leith. I don't know if I'm getting his first name wrong. Anyway, I mean, Grant. He got a medical red shirt. You know, usually you don't find out until you're a senior. He got his granted to him, you know, like in the middle of his career, which is, I mean, that's completely different from what it used to be. So, yeah, I feel like he would qualify. He's got a lot of miles on his knees. I don't know if he'll want to keep going through college seasons. If he wants to pursue Greco World Teams, I think he'd be better off, you know, getting away from a grind of a college season if he wants to continue wrestling. But, I mean, if he wants to go for another national title, so be it. But I think that's just going to be hard on his body.
Yeah. There was a ton of rehab that went into getting him back on the mat last year. So we don't know the extent of that injury. So, I mean, one option would be is you try to get the red shirt, and you start Cassioppi, and then next year when Stoll is healthy, redshirt Cassioppi, and you roll with Stoll. And then you're going to be coming into Olympic redshirt years. So, you know, obviously Cassioppi, I'd imagine, is going to try for probably a Greco World Team. I'd imagine the Olympic team.
Why not?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would imagine he's going to be on that, try to be on that squad. So lots to think about. Anything else you got here? I mean, I feel like we haven't been on for a while, but.
You know, like you said, I think we've covered quite a bit of ground. Obviously it's our first time back, and I don't know, just kind of, I think that's a good start to where we're at this summer. There's other things we could go into. Maybe we'll save what this 2019 class of Iowans. We've got quite a few already committed. I think there's maybe 6 of our top 50 are already committed to a Division I, Division II program. So maybe we'll kind of go through and preview where those guys are headed, and maybe what Julian Broderson, Nick Oldham, Spencer Trineri are doing. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think let's touch base on high school recruits next week. I think September 1st coming around. There's obviously football games starting here on college campuses. We've got lots of visits that are going to be going down. I think we're going to see some commitments here soon. So we'll try to find out the dirty of what's going on for official visits here in the next couple weeks and report back next week on episode 121. For everybody at IA Wrestle, we appreciate you listening. Welcome back to Potentially Dangerous. We'll see you next week. Get low when the whistle goes.